Jeremy Branham of the Killer Bees had a very intriguing take about the Texans quarterback situation. This was Jeremy Branham earlier on what he would do if he were the Texans in regards to solving the answer as to who should be the next franchise quarterback.
I am reconsidering the idea of waiting on a quarterback. I understand that where you're at with the quarterback position is dreadful. It's pathetic.
It is.
It leads to depression. I understand all of that. But I am reconsidering the idea of waiting on quarterback until the following year's draft. Caleb Williams makes it so enticing for a variety of reasons. Even if you think Bryce Young is equal to Caleb Williams, which I don't think Caleb Williams is a better NFL draft prospect than Bryce Young, you are putting the quarterback in a better position to have success right out of the gates if you wait a year. You have 2 first-round draft picks right now, and this is before you even entertain the conversation of maybe you trade down, maybe you trade for future picks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you just draft whoever with your 2 picks, maybe you go defensive player with the first pick, maybe you trade down, maybe you draft a stud receiver to get in the fold for that quarterback in the future. If you wait a year for Caleb Williams, he will be in a better spot to come in and have success from day one than if you go Bryce Young, first overall pick in this draft.
Cody, more real estate for Jeremy Branham on Bad Take Boulevard?
Oh, they stole Bad Take Boulevard from me. That's their thing now.
Oh, so we're done with it?
Yeah.
What do you mean they stole it from you?
Yeah, they do a whole Bad Take Boulevard thing every week.
But they credit the Wheelhouse.
No.
Is there a new street that Jeremy belongs on?
We'll see.
Okay.
This doesn't make any sense. And the argument is flawed in why you would want to do it. And there's so many levels to this that just don't make any sense. And again, I've seen this on social media from Texans fans. Jeremy's talked about it. This is not a plan. You have to have a plan. This is a wish. This is a Madden scenario. This is not real life. This is not a plan. Like, wait till Caleb Williams comes out next year is not a plan. That's a hope. That's not something executable that's in your control.
You're hoping for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Also, it's not just you're hoping for one thing. You need Caleb Williams to look really freaking good next year. You need to be the worst team in the NFL again next season. You need a lot of things to break your way, and there's no guarantees in this sport that all of that's going to go down.
Also, the crux of Jeremy's argument was, well, if you wait for Caleb Williams and you get him, he'll have more success right away. When has that ever been an argument about drafting a quarterback? Well, he has to be successful in year one. He has to have success right away. Like, year one is get acclimated to the National Football League, one of the most difficult positions in sports, which is starting quarterback. When is he has to be successful year one really ever been part of the conversation? I mean, the San Francisco 49ers took a quarterback at 3 and let him sit for a whole year. Patrick Mahomes sat for a whole year before he played. And they're like, well, he's got to be successful in the first year. Got to look successful right away. When has that ever been a part of the conversation in drafting a quarterback? Like, that's never been an element that you've cared about. Like, that's not what the Bengals cared about when they drafted Joe Burrow. It's not what the Jaguars cared about when they drafted Trevor Lawrence. Like, oh, they got to be successful right away. That's not why you draft a quarterback. You draft a quarterback because he's on the path and he starts to take you on the direction of changing the outcome and the outlook of your franchise. And then one of the follow-up comments was, well, let's get him a wide receiver. With who throwing to him? You think that guy's going to get better in a year? Like, with Davis Mills and Kyle Allen and some Jamoke free agent throwing the ball? Like, that wide receiver is not going to get any better. Get you a quarterback. Let that guy start building relationships with, at the time, which will be a third-year Nico Collins, second-year John Mechie. Hopefully you draft him somebody else within the draft. Maybe you bring in a veteran free agent wide receiver, get him some tight ends, start building some rapport with those guys. The offensive line is in a solid spot. You can improve that a little bit here or there. And then, oh, by the way, you can use the Browns selection that you have to add one of those other positions, a linebacker, a defensive lineman, whatever you want to add. The whole crux of the argument, there's just too many flaws to accept it. And again, it's not a plan. You have to have a plan to fix the Houston Texans, and that's not a plan.
I understand his logic. I do. But there's too many unknowns and things you just cannot bank on to execute this plan. You can't go through another year where you're the worst team in the NFL. And even if you do, there's no guarantee that Caleb Williams a year from now is the consensus top guy. You just don't know. You never know. We've seen this before, where the top guy anointed a year in advance turns out to not even being close to the consensus guy. You also can't guarantee that you're going to be the worst team. And Jeremy talks about building up the rest of the team so that quarterback comes in and has, players in place around him. You could take Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud and still accomplish all that this offseason. You could start to build the team around Bryce Young with a head coach that you're going to bring in that you think would be here to help develop him from day one. I guess the other thing, you're going to fire Lovie Smith at the end of this year, and you're going to be the worst team again in football next year with a first-year head coach? At that point, do you have any faith in Nick Caserio to be the guy that could execute this plan? No way. So there's just too many things you're banking on to try and execute this plan that is not even a lock to work. So you take Bryce Young, and guess what? You still have the Browns pick to add a premium talent, or as he said, trade down and accumulate extra picks if that's something that the Texans decide they want to do.
It also hurts your faith in that head coach. You come in, and for the third year in a row, you have one of the worst head coaches in football, and then, okay, you're going to fire the general manager because you've been the worst team in football for back-to-back years. GM's out of here. And then you have the whole GM didn't hire the head coach, and he just came off one of the worst seasons in football. It's like, where's your, start the changeover from disaster to rebuild this year.
Yeah, this is a sport that's set up for parity. Like, the Texans being as bad as they've been for as long as they've been is already kind of rare. We've never seen it in this franchise's history, Cody, like you bring up all the time. And also, this is a sport that sees teams go from worst to first all of the time. The NFL has it set up to where it's almost hard to be one of the worst teams in the league year in and year out. You can't just accept that that's going to happen again. Next year's year 3 of Nick Caserio. You want to wait till year 4 before you start to see anything from him to determine whether or not he can be a successful general manager in this league? There are already Texans fans losing patience with this guy. You're willing to be patient for another? How damn awful this season is and how many people are checked out of this season. You don't draft a quarterback next year and you put Davis Mills and Kyle Allen and Baker Mayfield, whoever the hell else you got throwing out there, people are going to be checked out from the jump next season. Don't intentionally be bad. You want to see some progress, some signs that this team can actually be competitive in the not-too-distant future. That doesn't happen if you don't take a quarterback.
Also, this franchise sat here for 4 years of the Bill O'Brien era through, well, not a franchise quarterback. We're just going to try to make it work. Waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for the perfect situation. Got to wait for it. Got to keep waiting. And then next thing you know, you had to give up a first-round pick to move up. You go get Deshaun Watson. And then your team stunk, and the very next year you cost yourself a top 10 pick. Like, this whole wait and see thing, no. Force it. If you have to force it, force it. You know, like, hey, if a lot of things are wrong with your car, you don't keep driving your car when it's messed up. You fix what you can fix.
The overall point, though, from Jeremy, and I've seen some fans have, this take, don't force the quarterback if you don't believe in the quarterback. I would find it hard to believe. This is not last year. That Nick Caserio wouldn't like either Stroud or Young. And I think he'd like Young more than Stroud. I mean, that would concern me if Nick Caserio doesn't like either one of those guys. This is the same guy that chose Derek Stingley over Sauce when 90% of the NFL seemingly said Sauce over Stingley. Now we're talking about a quarterback and this guy doesn't like either one. If that scenario played itself out, he shouldn't be the GM. Get somebody else in here that believes in Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud and can hire a head coach that could work with that guy and help develop that guy. That's what Cincinnati did with Joe Burrow. They got him Zach Taylor, offensive guy. They got him Jamar Chase. They got him weapons galore, and they built it up. The Texans could do the exact same thing in one offseason because they have that extra first-round pick, and they have salary cap space to add to their team to help that young quarterback.
I'm cool with being patient with this rebuild. I'm cool with being patient with Nick Caserio. I can't be that patient. I can't wait that long. I can't go into year 4 with a new quarterback and saying, oh, this is it. 4 years into a 6-year deal. Like, all right, now we'll see if you can actually do something as the GM of this team. Like, that just doesn't work for me. And you brought it up, Jake. This is not last year's quarterback class, all right? If we were talking about the 2022 QB draft class again, or Kenny Pickett was your best option, or Malik Willis was your best option, then it's like, yeah, take Will Anderson, take Jalen Carter, or trade down, get a few picks, and then take a quarterback with one of those picks. But the things that people are saying about Caleb Williams right now were being said about Bryce Young at this time last year. Like, he's worthy of being a top pick in this draft. I feel the same way about C.J. Stroud. I feel better about Bryce Young. I'd rather have him, but I think C.J. Stroud is better than Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis, who were the first 2 guys off the board last year. Nobody would be crushing you for taking one of those 2 guys in the top 3. And once again, you'd be able to incite some excitement in your fan base if you draft a quarterback. You're not doing that with anybody else.
There are just so few teams that you would sit here and you would say 2023 is hopeless for them. Like, that's what basically you're saying. 2023 is hopeless. Like, because to get Caleb Williams, you have to be the worst team in football. So 2023 is hopeless. Like, There's not one team. I'm looking at Tankathon right now, teams in the top 10. There's not one team that I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, for sure, their 2023 is hopeless. Like, yeah, Denver gets a real head coach. They turn some things around, get Russell Wilson going. Maybe that the Rams, they stay healthy. The Saints get a quarterback in there and they stay healthy. The Panthers, it's not hopeless because they're going to have an investment in somebody at the quarterback spot, and then they're going to have that to look forward to over the course of the year. Jacksonville, certainly not hopeless. They were the worst team in football last year. Now they got 4 victories. The Cardinals, they might have a new head coach and a new general manager, and oh, by the way, they got a young quarterback. All right? The Indianapolis Colts, they probably feel like they're a quarterback away. Like, You can't sit here and tell me on December 6th, 2022, in the middle of the 2022 season, that you want the 2023 season to be hopeless too.